Things that go bump in the night. Do you believe or are you a cynic? I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just curious. Hey there, Bill Sherck, the man about the woods. Welcome to the Minnesota Bound podcast, the stories behind the stories, our Halloween edition. And as part of our travels, documenting stories about the outdoor world around us, every fall, I don't know, leaves change colors, things get wet and foggy in the woods, and it just feels like the right time of year to be talking about curious stories. You know, for me, it started way back in college. When everyone moves into the dorms, you meet all these new people and your life's about to change, and your first classes are the next morning. So we stay up all night talking. And one of my roommates told a story about his driving instructor seeing mysterious lights in the woods in Michigan. How my roommate remembered this from his driving days, I don't know. But I eventually went up to Paulding, Michigan to see the Paulding lights. And it was an amazing, fun, unusual, unexplainable night. And I've been back 2 or 3 times. So it's a fun place to visit. But it got me thinking about stories. Of things in this world we can't explain with our Halloween edition, which is exactly why I asked my old hunting and fishing acquaintance, Eric Moen, to come by today. Eric, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great, Bill.
How's your fishing season been?
It's the trout season was doing pretty good earlier this fall. I just got back from the Boundary Waters yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it was pretty slow. I mean, I caught one rainbow, and that was about it. Got one bird, one grouse. We don't have a dog, so it was wet. It was wet.
That's good. You know, I sit in the office banging away on my computer, writing scripts and, scheduling stories, and my phone blows up with these pictures from you of brown trout and quiet lakes and all this stuff. You like to rub it in, and you're good at it. You love life outdoors, but you have another passion in your life.
Yes, I do.
You are a paranormal investigator.
Yes, sir.
Which is how we met.
Exactly.
I was with a buddy down fishing in southeastern Minnesota. We were trout fishing in the fall. We ended up at the St. James Hotel in Red Wing, which there are all kinds of stories. And voila, you and your wife show up.
Yeah, we got married there.
Like it was like weeks
earlier,
right?
I think 2 weeks prior, we just had gotten married at the St. James. What a perfect place for 2 paranormal investigators to get married at.
And we connect. We're staying overnight, and you do some research, and we find some interesting things. But what are you doing? What is this passion all about for you?
Started growing up in a haunted house. You know, my great-great-grandfather built our house in 1889, and it's got a lot of history to it. And I've lived there much of my life. My wife and I now own it, and all kinds of crazy things happen in that house. We were just having some remodeling done this spring, and I warned them. I said, this place is haunted. Don't be too freaked out if some things happen that you can't explain. And sure enough, the back door, this is in broad daylight, it's a heavy door. It just got slammed shut by itself. And he said, well, that's it. And I go, just relax. It's going to be okay. And he had 2 workers, and they were laying a luxury vinyl floor in our kitchen. And 3 times they had heard footsteps walk up to them and then turn around and no one's there. Twice they had people tapping them on the shoulders, and they said, this is it, we're done. I had to calm them all down again, and they finished the job, but they could hear footsteps going upstairs. The place is kind of a crazy place to live. I mean, that's how I got my passion.
And you love it.
I love it.
What's wrong with you? Get out.
There's really nothing evil about it. I mean, it's just fascinating. I got a science background, so I've always been curious as to what is else out there. So that's led me, the paranormal field has led me to develop certain things for the ghost hunting trade. So that's kind of how I got involved with it, was an early scary experiences as a child.
So I think about laying in my bed as a kid and the house going bump in the night when it was 32 below zero, or middle of the night, parents are asleep and you think you're hearing things in the house. Like, is that what you're talking about? Or are they moments that just changed you?
The night that changed me, I was 11 years old, and it was January. It was cold. My mom and dad were playing cards with my buddy's parents half a block down. And I go upstairs and into my room. The windows are closed. It's well below zero. Bill, I am not exaggerating. The curtains were flying off the curtain rods. And I said, this is it. And I run back downstairs, and I thought, well, had to been a piece of bad roast beef or something I ate for dinner. So I get my composure back. I go back upstairs, and it's fairly quiet up there. There's nothing going on. So I crawl into bed, and my bed's pushed up against the wall. On the other side of the wall is my mom and dad's closet. Well, right by my head, 3 loud booms, boom, 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 right by my head. I'm bolt upright. I'm in my pajamas. I booked out of that house a half a block down in my bare feet to get to my mom and dad where they were playing cards. That was the night that really, truly shocked me. I mean, to see those curtains flying and that boom, 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 I did get the shotgun and I went in there to see who was in there. There was no one there. And that's when I decided I'm out of there.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 11 years old at that time.
Yeah, that's stuff that will keep a kid awake at night.
Exactly.
So this Paulding Light story, have you ever heard of the Paulding Lights?
Yes, I have.
So it's an interesting place. I don't pass judgment whether there are mysterious lights in the woods or not. All I know is you're in the middle of nowhere in the UP of Michigan. You drive to a dead end, gravel road, and there are people from Louisiana and Chicago and Wisconsin just standing out. Some may or may not have a cold beer in their hands. And they wait, and you see these colored lights dancing out on the horizon, out on the woods. And there's been a lot of, hearsay about, well, is it a road? Is it not? But if you look at the maps, the road doesn't match what you're looking at. It's just interesting, right? The first time we went there was a lady in an big old Oldsmobile station wagon. And I want to say maybe she was from Louisiana, and she was selling, UFO t-shirts and all that. And it was just so intriguing to meet all these different people and just understand what they were feeling and believing. And I think that's a big part of what you do, right?
Exactly. It's part spirituality for me. I've been really fascinated with the Indian lore and how they react to the paranormal. And they tend to leave it alone. They've got a good respect for it, but they are believers. And we were down in southeastern Arizona, and the Indian lore has something called shapeshifters. They've got a name for this entity. I'm not going to repeat the name because they don't repeat the name. It's just one of those words you don't use. So out of respect for the native culture, I'm not going to use that word. You can look it up if you wanted to. It begins with a W. That's all I'll say. So my wife and I were down for the gem show down in Arizona and Tucson. And part of our dealings with business and pleasure is going off in the countryside to look for curious things. We come across Chiricahua National Monument, which is incidentally right next to Route 666. That was our original allure because we heard rumors of Route 666. And they changed the name of it because there's so many bad situations on that highway that they had to actually change the name. So we go into the National Monument, and I see this park ranger, about a 55, 60-year-old Native American man dressed in his green ranger uniform. He's out in the shed, putting around with the lawnmower and the garden tools and so forth. My wife goes in the gift shop and talks to the other park ranger. So I'm out talking with this guy, and I strike up a conversation with him. And I said, I'm a paranormal investigator. And he kind of looked at me kind of strangely, and he goes, yeah. He goes, there are certain things that you shouldn't really deal with out there. I go, I agree with you. And he goes, have you heard of shapeshifters before? I said, yeah. And we started talking about that creature that the Native Americans don't talk about. And he said, there are certain things out there that we can't explain, and this area, these hills down here are filled with rumors of such a creature. He says, as a matter of fact, 666, the Route 666, there's been so many tragic events on that highway that they had to change the name. And ever since they changed the name, things have gotten better, but a lot of young people have died on that. So as I was talking with him, I struck an affinity with this guy. We're getting along just great. And it was time to go, and I went to shake his hand, and he wouldn't allow me to shake his hand. I thought, well, that was kind of rude, but it is what it is. So I go up into the gift shop, and I find my wife, and we're chatting, and I said to the other park ranger, the lady, I said, that guy out there, he's a really cool dude. And how long has he been working for you, the native guy? And she says, what native guy? I'm the only one working here today. And I said, no, come on now, don't put me on. She says, no, who were you exactly talking to? And I said, no, it's about a 60-year-old native guy dressed in a park ranger. She said, we never had a guy as long as I've worked here on that description. So we were talking about shapeshifters. So there you go. I mean, was I actually talking to a shapeshifter? He wouldn't allow me to touch his hand. And so that's...
And explain what a shapeshifter is.
Werewolves are a form of shapeshifter. They can change into different identities. There's a show called... a popular cable TV show right now. I forgot the name of it, but...
it's called Minnesota Bound.
Yeah, there you go. But they talk about things that... legends, that they disguise themselves as humanoids, or sometimes Bigfoot is considered a shapeshifter. And I've got a lot of friends that go up to the Boundary Waters, as a matter of fact, and get in trouble with the U.S. Borders Patrol because they're out there looking for Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And some people consider that entity to be a shapeshifter. So,
but the point is, this ranger you talked to
wasn't there. He never existed.
So what do you make of that?
A ghost? We're talking about Native American culture, where they're talking about things that are there but really aren't there, that you don't really know who you're talking to or what you're talking to at the very moment. And the fact that he kept talking about these creatures that would come up in unassuming disguises and then talk to you for about 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden they're not there anymore. It was just kind of strange, and it gave me the heebie-jeebies.
And you still like to do this stuff?
I still love to do this stuff.
All right, I want to get to some Minnesota stories, Eric. Eric Moen is my guest, paranormal investigator, pretty darn good trout angler, and middle of the road when it comes to grouse. You love it more than anyone, I know that much. But first, we need to thank a few sponsors that make the Minnesota Bound podcast happen. First up, one of my favorites, the Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Beef folks. We make a career of telling stories about clean water, native habitat, and positive environmental practices. That is exactly why I love Thousand Hills. They do locally raised beef done differently. Let me explain. Thousand Hill uses what is called regenerative agriculture to raise their cattle. Those beef cows graze in fields of wild grasses. They move between different lots of different fields of grass. It is a sustainable ecosystem free of synthetic fertilizers and chemical herbicides. It is a system of agriculture that promotes clean water, natural grasses, and the best beef you've tasted. Believe me. Katie was traveling this week. I was daddy daycare with the boys all week. We had the hickory smoked links that were amazing. We had the tenderloins last weekend. It is special. We love grilling, and we love Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Beef. Believe me, The boys look so forward to those meals. It is beef raised the right way. Check out Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed to understand their regenerative agricultural practices and fall in love with Thousand Hills beef. Also, we'd like to thank the Minnesota Propane Association.
Hi, I'm Laura Shera, and did you know that a propane gas furnace lifespan averages 20 years, while electric heat pumps only last 14 years? And propane furnaces work in all temperatures while delivering warm and consistent heat to your home. Why buy 2 heating systems when one propane furnace can do it all? It lasts longer, works better, and it costs less. These things and more are done with propane today. The right energy right now.
Another of our great sponsors, North Dakota Tourism. Eric and I love to get outside and hunt. We love bird hunting, and you need to start planning your fall bird hunt in North Dakota at legendarynd.com. North Dakota right now is home to more than 800,000 plots hunting acres. Plots, that is private land that is open to public hunting. The plots guides, they show you exactly where all that land hides. Right now, North Dakota's ringneck crowing counts, they're up like 15% this year. The state is also home to an estimated 2.9 million breeding ducks. It is an absolute outdoor oasis. Bag your limit this fall in North Dakota. Visit legendarynd.com. You and I, Eric, are talking about a possible bird hunt up in the North Woods. I don't want to give away our destination, but if we can make that happen, you know of a place that is worth a visit around this time of year.
Yes, I do. As I was kicking around there a few years ago up on, up by the Boundary Waters up near Illy, ran across an old, what I thought was a logging camp, and very fascinating. It was next to an abandoned highway. It was right up my alley, up near the hunting grounds, and it looks very promising. I would love to get up there and do some bird hunting and some investigating.
What I didn't tell you when you first told me about that story, so my family had a place on the Ottawa River, a summer cabin at a French logging town called Fort Collonges or Collonges. And as a kid, my grandfather would bushwhack. It was essentially like the Boundary Waters up there, right? With a couple of dirt roads here and there. And my dad, they'd leave my dad with the boat. And they'd give him a shotgun. And he was like 8, right? Times were just different. And we talk about these stories all the time. And he'd say, get in trouble, just blast a couple of shells and we'll come for you. But my grandfather and his buddy would disappear. And they'd come back and they'd have arms full of stuff that they would pillage out of these abandoned logging camps in the bush of Quebec. So my house is full, Katie, my wife, and my house is full of stuff, rocking chairs made out of old flour barrels,
Nice.
Grandpa presumed that the cook needed a place to sit. So when the guys were out working and in between shifts, he was cutting himself a chair, lots of stuff like that. So I'm very intrigued if we can somehow together get up there and just sniff around a little bit.
I would love to do that.
Other Minnesota destinations or experiences you've had that tie into the outdoor world. You hunt where? Up by Alexandria?
Alexandria, which was one of the creepiest locations. We were out doing a little hunting up there, and we ran across a young man that freshly moved into a manufactured home with the brand new basement put in, and he was having trouble, and so he wanted us to come out and check it out. So I did, and he was a highly troubled individual. He had moved into this new place of his, pretty much in a remote area near kind of Alexandria region, and he started drinking real heavily as he moved into this place, and it is a creepy
story
place.
starts.
So we get there on a Friday night, and
The bottle of Jim Beam is gone.
he was a little crispy. He wasn't too bad, though. We go down in the basement, and he shows us freshly poured slab of cement that looked like it had been curing for about 2 weeks. But in there's a big pool of what looked like blood. I'm going to say it's paint, but there was a big pool of blood, and he couldn't explain it. He couldn't explain why this red substance was seeping up through this freshly laid patch of cement in the basement. So we're down there dinging around. I've got something called a K2 meter, and what it is, it's a series of lights in a bar graph that go from green to yellow to orange to red. And as the electromagnetic fields get stronger, it'll go up in intensity, and the lights will light up. So we don't do a lot with demonic stuff, but this is one of the crazier cases where we didn't like it there. We were hearing all kinds of strange noises in that place. And so I got the meter out there, and we're doing our thing. And I said, well, what are you? Are you a friendly spirit? Nope, no lights. Are you an evil spirit? Then all of a sudden the lights just maxed out. It's like, okay, great. Now we're dealing with one of these things. Long story short, we kept investigating, and every time we brought up like the dark side of things, this meter would go nuts. And there's nothing down there that would set this meter off. There was nothing electronic down there. It was devoid of pretty much all electricity and so forth that would set my meter off. At the end of the night, towards the end of the night, we went back upstairs. And we were talking to the owner. He had never been downstairs while we were down there investigating that night. As a matter of fact, we all went up there and we were counseling him, and we were going to do some saging with some sage to kind of clear it out. It's a Native American deal again. We go back downstairs, and in the wall was a tiny handprint in red with the word H-I, high. And we can't explain it. It was like a child's handprint of that same blood-like material imprinted on the wall. That was in Alexandria area of Minnesota. And we did a full house clearing after that. And we did follow up with the man about 2 weeks later. And after our house clearing, things had dramatically improved for him. His drinking had slowed down. There wasn't any more of that seepage of blood up through the bottom of the floor anymore. And he was a fairly decent guy after that. He moved out not long thereafter. We told him that's not a really good spot for him to be anyway. But some of the creepy things you run into out there.
All right, so let me play devil's advocate. Why do these things happen when you're around, but I don't run into them, or somebody else doesn't? Is it because I'm not looking? Is it
I ask a lot of questions, Bill. I go out there, it's like the person who doesn't ask questions, the mouth that doesn't get fed doesn't ask to be fed. So I'm out there when I'm out there hunting and fishing and so forth. My love of the paranormal and the creepy old places, I'll go into a bar, even though I don't drink. I'll sit down at the bar and just start yakking with the locals, saying, what do you have going on around here? What's the interesting tale of the town? Because I love history too. And they'll start, as the liquor flows, the beer starts flowing, their tongues get a little looser, and I hear all these ghost stories. And I also find good hunting spots, by the way, doing that.
I'm sure you do, especially when you say please and thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you're buying the drinks, it goes even better. So it's kind of a fun thing that it's a perfect storm, as it were, hunting and fishing and history and ghost hunting, because you're out in the woods, you get to run across these old shacks and old cemeteries and so forth, and it's really cool stuff.
How do you explain it?
I can't explain it. A skeptic is going to be a skeptic. If they don't want to believe, they're not going to believe, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. It might even be a good defense mechanism, because perhaps maybe they can't handle the truth. If they really saw what was going on, they might not like it. For me, I'm sensitive, so I think that certain people are gifted or more sensitive to the dead things or the things that go bump in the night. I'm very sensitive to these things, and I'm able to pick up on them a little bit easier. And I wouldn't say I'm more gullible, but after I've tasted this living in a haunted house, I'm more open to seeing more of these things.
Your mind is probably a little more open.
Exactly. And yeah, I think it's just an open mind type of situation.
Do you find that people that tag along with you on some of your adventures get a little bit curious?
Yeah. I like to bring skeptics with me. I love to show them in a really haunted location that these things truly do exist. And I'm not going to say I've changed some minds, even though they're still hardcore skeptics. They're a little bit more open to it when they see an iron door in Fergus Falls Regional Treatment Center just all of a sudden slam on its own. They'll still try to explain it away, but they'll say that was different. I can't explain it. There was no wind, there was no breeze, and that was a heavy iron door slamming. So I'll give you that one, Eric. I mean that's a little different.
You're batting 239 all of a sudden. All right. I want to talk about some of the technology that you're using as part of your investigations. And I want another story from you. But first, we need to thank the folks that make the Minnesota Bound podcast happen every week. The stories behind the stories. You know, we have lots of great sponsors. No doubt. The world has been a crazy place lately. We've all got the busy work schedules. We've got kids, coaching, travel, right? Everyone seems to know the routine right now, and it feels like it's too much. But you know what? I have found a way to take some time and truly get away, and I do it in a Voyager sauna. Voyager builds custom saunas for your home, backyard, and business. And they are the only company building premier mobile saunas, units on wheels. They are units that go anywhere you go. We're getting ready to pull one north to Grand Marais in 10 days for a grouse hunt. You know, these are the pick of the Sherck family. Workers use clear grade cedar benches, spray foam insulation, Kuma wood-fired stoves, or Hilo electric heaters. Finnish-influenced, hand-built saunas that will last a lifetime. We love our sauna. Voyager, a Minnesota movement, again, influenced by Finnish culture. Visit VoyagerSaunas.com and get ready to de-stress. Trust me, it works. Finally, Kinetico. Do you know Kinetico? The Shercks love our Kinetico water. It is no secret. We have been fans for many years. We live in the country, and we have that ironclad well water. That is good news and bad, right? Well, we treat all of our water with the Kinetico whole home water treatment system. We also use Kinetico's K5 drinking water system. You know that white buildup you get around the faucets? We get none of that. The dishes are clean. And Katie loves what Kinetico water does for both her hair and her skin. But the most important part of this whole deal, and I talk about it week after week, the Sherck boys. They are religious about filling their water bottles at home with Kinetico water before they head to the soccer field or the hockey rink. We have great tasting water, and the foul smell is gone. Do me a favor. Call Kinetico like the Shercks did and look forward to clean, safe water. Okay, this is Minnesota Bound, the stories behind the stories. Most of the tales we head out and document, we can explain. But every once in a blue moon, something doesn't quite add up, which is why my guest Eric Moen is here today. Eric is an avid angler and hunter, but he has another passion. He is a paranormal investigator. And the amount of stories that you have just about things you have seen and experienced, it's just amazing to me. Here in Minnesota, if somebody were to meet you and say, okay, prove it, where should I go to have an unusual moment? What would you do? What would you tell them?
Well, the Palmer House is a good hotel
up
South
north.
Center. the St. James. They could go to Mantorville, the Mantorville Opera House. That was a very haunted location. We investigated a few times down by Rochester, West Concord area.
What's special about that?
Well, we a lot of poltergeists, and poltergeist is a German word for noisy ghosts. In other words, things that move. And we were down there one fall, real near Halloween, as a matter of fact. And we were down there nosing around in the basement. And they had an old Christmas tree that was, in storage down there. And there's a mummified cat down there, by the way, which is kind of strange. It doesn't smell. It's just kind of weird thing that they have in the basement.
Catches you off guard.
But we were down there, and it was, dark, and we do our thing in the dark. We got our little flashlights, and all of a sudden this Christmas tree just up and just got tossed against the wall. It's like we jumped out of our skins. It's like, what the heck did that and why? That's the thing. It's like, what are they trying to tell us? I mean, we were down in this, the Mantorville Opera House is a very old structure. It had burned at one time, I think in 1909 or something, and they rebuilt it again. But it's been an opera house for all these years, and it's remarkably haunted. I mean, you can hear footsteps, and behind the green rooms, and some of the green rooms where the actors dress in the dressing rooms, we were back there also that same night, and a rack of clothes just got pushed out into the hallway just by itself. It's like, I don't understand how the energy is manifested to actually physically move a whole rack of clothes. But it's just fascinating type stuff. I can't explain how or why it does these things. I think a lot of times it's just the dead trying to say, hey, look, we're still here. It's like, look at us. Or else they enjoyed it so much in real time that they just like hanging out there. It's really, I don't think anyone can explain exactly what's going on with these type of things.
I was just looking up here on my map. Have you ever heard of Marmarth, North Dakota?
No.
It is in the far southwestern corner of North Dakota. And it is, when you look at the pictures of this town, it is a literal ghost town.
Nice.
Literal.
I love ghost towns.
That's the rumor. I think maybe we need to go there and hunt together.
That would be awesome. Ghost towns are kind of my specialty. We don't have a lot in Minnesota because they always tear down the buildings right away. There was a ghost town, a legitimate one up by Hibbing, and they got rid of it. And then there was Taconite, which is up on the North Shore, and there is only a street light and an old rotten paved road left of it. But they used to be literal houses that people just up and left. But yeah, I'm totally game for Marmarth, North Dakota.
I shouldn't do this, but I'm showing him pictures of this abandoned town. It's not
Mystic Theater. Now, there you go. That's right up my alley.
with happy smiley faces. Those almost look like longhorns. They're,
My mouth is actually
Deco.
salivating, Bill, as I'm watching these pictures.
There are all kinds of places. And at least you can look at them and say, there must be a story there. And in my world, if something's been around long enough, decades, sometimes centuries, right? The stories add up over time. And that's the fun of this stuff.
Well, there's a theory. There's two types of hauntings, intelligent and residual. And we're talking about history. And the residual haunting is like a fabric of time being replayed. It's not intelligent. There's not like you can't talk to it and it'll talk back to you. But that's kind of what we're talking about is imprints of time.
Kind of describes me perfectly.
So, it's like even if something isn't actively haunted, you might get some stuff that has been replayed throughout time and you might see something hear something. It's just totally unexplainable, but it's so fascinating. I just love ghost towns. That's why my wife and I do so well traveling out west when we go on our rock finding missions and when I'm out hunting and so forth.
But Your intrigue has led you to technology. You're trying to build stuff.
I am. I've built a few things. One of them was a ghost detector, the Outer Realm Pod, which detects static charge in the air. And, you see these cartoons of a guy seeing a ghost, and all of a sudden his hair is standing on end. Well, that's static charge. That's the static pulling his hair off the top of his head, and the hair in the back of your neck standing up. That's static charge. So I decided to create an instrument that would measure that. And so, because when I've been around ghostly areas and when I've been around spiritual places, I could feel the hair on my arms raise. So I decided to build something. So I built these pods that would go off in static charging. So you'd say, well, what would make that go off? Well, there's really nothing. Static charge just does not come out of nowhere unless it's a lightning bolt or something, or static on your feet on a carpet. But if there's no one walking near one of these devices, there should be no reason for them to go off. So these would light up with lights and sound. And I tested them out in one of our locations, if I may go into one of the creepiest spots. It was a suburban home just outside of Minneapolis. I can't give away its location, but it was built on a potter's field. And this potter's field is where a hospital was, where there were so many deaths that they didn't have markers. So those familiar with the movie Poltergeist, that home was built on a potter's field. That's what this house was. As a matter of fact, in the spring, bones would come up through the ground, the frost would push them up, and this family was having a hard time dealing with
Imagine that.
with the creatures or whatever the heck the ghosts of this house were. So I took my Outer Realm pods, and there was 2 sets of staircases, and I placed them all, 2 pods in each staircase. So I started off down the basement, and I had my sage. I like my sage, and I'm trying to clear this house out. And as I was approaching the pods, I was pushing these entities up the stairs, and each pod would go off, bing, bing, as these entities were moving up the stairs. And the first staircase, the first pod would go off, the second pod, and then do the main floor and go upstairs. And again, these pods would go off as I was pushing these spirits up, and I'd have the windows open in the upstairs, and hopefully these things would leave. Didn't happen in this case. But that's the type of thing that I developed. And
the rumor is you're getting into 5G now.
I'm working on the dead phone, and it's similar technology. I can't give away. It's going to be a telephone to the dead, something that you could literally talk to and hear them back. I've got an engineer working with me on this. I've got an electronics background myself, but I need the horsepower of a full-blown engineer to get this idea up and running, and we're making headway on it.
How do you even get that done? Because I'm guessing you talk to 90 people and they say, no, you're nuts.
I don't care what people think, really. This is a passion of mine.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking to get rich, and it may not even work, Bill. But my ghost detector does work, and I got encouragement from that. And people ask me, well, how do you get these ideas anyway? Well, how did Einstein get the theory of relativity? It was a thought experiment. And I don't want to blow my own horn, but I'm a very intelligent guy, and I've got an IQ of 150, and some of these things come to me when I meditate. And I don't want to sound like a crazy guy. I really don't. But that's how I get some of these. I don't sit there and pen and paper and think, well, how am I going to make this? It just kind of comes to me when I'm in my quiet time, if I'm sitting by a campfire.
And then you're able to rationalize and explain to an engineer, and they say, yeah, let's go to work on this.
And I got a guy that knows what language I'm talking about. He's got the idea of how to pull my idea together and put the parts down on paper and build one of these things. So whether it works or not, I don't know. It's a fun thing that I want to do. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of nervous about if it does work. Seriously.
Well, no doubt, right?
What are people going to do with this thing?
Right.
I mean, in the hands of the wrong person, this is not a mentally unstable person. It's not a cool thing to have around the house. So I got to really be careful about what I develop. And I am fairly confident that I will be able to build a prototype that will work. Whether or not it ever sees the light of day in the public's hands, I don't know. That's kind of a moral question.
Well, if it works, I'll just follow you from a distance. Is
There you
that fair?
You're on the other end of the cornfield, and I call you up on the dead phone. Bill, this is your dead uncle. I don't want to get into that. It's too weird.
Your stories are amazing.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time, and I have a feeling we're going to have a couple of really fun hunts together ahead of us.
I am so looking forward to that.
I think we're going to North Dakota, and I hope that somebody is listening to this, typing in that little North Dakota town, because when you see the pictures, and we just tickled it, there are 20 other buildings like that.
I'm excited. I didn't know about that place. I'm going to do some research when I get home.
See, I finally did something. I
There you
taught
go.
something.
There you
Eric, thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill.
It's good to catch up with you. And thanks to everyone for tuning in for today's Minnesota Bound podcast, the stories behind the stories. I hope you have safe and fruitful Halloweens, especially if you have families nearby. Hey, I want to make sure we thank the people who allow this podcast to happen. The Minnesota Bound podcast, presented by Kinetico Water Treatment Systems. My family uses Kinetico. You should too. Also, North Dakota Tourism, Voyager Saunas and Mobile Units, the Minnesota Propane Association. On behalf of the Minnesota Bound crew, as we say every week, Eric, until next week, do you know it? Don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors.